Let's talk some Ohio State recruiting. Ryan Day and his staff hosted a massive official visit weekend in Columbus. I got Matt Parker from Letterman Row on this video to break it all down. But first, make sure, Ohio State fans, that you are subscribed to the On3 Recruits channel. We love talking Buckeye recruiting, so make sure you guys are subscribed. All right, let's bring on Matt Parker from Letterman Row, and it was a big weekend. So let's just start with the big man. The number one offensive tackle in America, David Sanders, was on his official visit to Ohio State. What we think is going to be his final visit to Ohio State before he visits, maybe not, or before he decides. But what are you hearing on David Sanders coming out of this official?
Well, it sounds to me, Josh, that Ohio State, every button that the Buckeyes needed to hit this weekend with David Sanders Jr. and his family, the Buckeyes absolutely did that and more. Just talking to a couple of sources Sunday afternoon, the biggest thing was just seeing a lot of the things that the Sanders family had already seen from Ohio State. It really is just the consistency, seeing that brotherhood, seeing the plan for David Sanders Jr., both on the field and off the field, how the Buckeyes can develop him as an offensive tackle. And as you know, someone when football is done, football doesn't last forever. Yeah. So you got to do something after ball. And just the consistency. That was the biggest thing for Ohio State going into this weekend. We talked about this, you and I, a few days ago, about how this is his third visit in 2024. And this visit by far was the best visit at Ohio State for David Sanders Jr. and his family. To me, we were talking about this, you and I, a few days ago again, that it feels a lot like Ohio State and Tennessee right now with Georgia looking in. And I really think Ohio State has cemented itself in that top two spot with Tennessee. So we're going to see what happens here in the next coming days, maybe coming weeks, however long this decision process takes for the Sanders family. But Ohio State is squarely in the mix for the nation's number one offensive tackle.
Yeah, and when he was in Nashville, it sounded like he didn't set a decision date, but it sounded like sometime before his senior season he would make a decision. So that I said this could be his final visit, but there's one more visit weekend at the end of July. How important do you think it is for Ohio State to get David Sanders back on campus if he hasn't already made a decision?
To me, that is the top priority for Ohio State. Ohio State is pretty funny, though. Usually during that 1 week of a visit period that's in July, Ohio State in the last couple of years hasn't really brought kids on campus. Mm-hmm. They did last year. Maybe they will this year. Buckeye fans will remember that Ohio State actually managed to sneak Aaron Scott Jr. on campus before he announced his decision to Ohio State. That was the same day that Chris Henry Jr. committed to Ohio State. Yeah. So if the Buckeyes do that again this year, maybe they can find a way to get David Sanders Jr. back on campus. But again, we don't really have a public timeline or a hard decision date yet. So everyone's going to have to wait and see, and that's part of the fun.
It is. All right. Tell me more about five-star DB Dorian Brew, who was on campus this weekend.
Well, I mean, this is a guy that I've said it with you. I know that Steve Wiltfong has said it on the Wiltfong Whip Around. This is a guy that in January was ready to announce his commitment to Ohio State. There are a few schools that are in the mix here, and I'm very much in agreement with Steve Wiltfong that this is an Ohio State-USC battle. I think the thing that Ohio State has going for it right now is the fact that Brew has a lot of family that is in Ohio. A lot of folks will remember that, he is not originally from Ohio. There's a misconception here. He's from Texas, lived and grew up in Ohio, and then moved back to Texas. But he spent a lot of his years outside of Dayton, Ohio. That's where his mom still resides. And to get back into the Buckeye State, to be around family and everything like that, I think that has a large component to this recruitment that maybe a lot of people haven't really, really discussed. And to just be around the culture of Ohio State, he has a lot of relationships with people in the program. His player hosts this weekend were Jermaine Matthews and Aaron Scott Jr., two guys that are in that southwest corner of the state of Ohio, so they have a lot of familiarity with one another. Dorian Brew spent a lot of time, obviously, with Devin Sanchez and Naeem Offord, the two five-star plus cornerback commits to the Buckeyes. And their player hosts were Denzel Burke and Davidson Igbinosun, two of the best cornerbacks in college football going into 2024. So there's a lot of firepower and a lot of star power being put on Dorian Brew this weekend. Yeah. And I've had an RPM pick in on Dorian Brew since last June. That's June of 2023. And I don't have a reason to change it right now. I feel good where the Buckeyes sit, but again, things can change like the weather. So we'll have to see what happens. But coming out of this visit, I think Ohio State is sitting in that number one spot right above USC and Texas. I'll throw Texas in there as well because he just took that official visit to Austin midweek before he went to Ohio State.
All right, let's talk about Zion Grady because he took an unofficial visit to Ohio State in the spring. It felt like the Buckeyes kind of got their foot in the door, maybe even a little bit more. It seemed like they were really doing something with Zion Grady. But then official visits to Auburn, Florida State, Tennessee, Miami. There's competition. So coming out of this trip, where do you think Ohio State stands with Zion Grady?
I don't think Ohio State is in pole position for Zion Grady, but the Buckeyes are certainly a real contender for Grady,
Yeah.
and the Buckeyes need to be taken seriously when it comes to Grady. I know, you've mentioned all the places that he's taken official visits to. Just reading some things and talking with some folks in the On3 network, Florida State is a big contender in that recruitment. But when we talk about edge rushers, we have to talk about Larry Johnson. And, last year was only landing 2 defensive linemen last cycle. One of them was 5-star edge rusher Edric Houston. So there's a lot of opportunity in this 2025 cycle to bring in a couple of guys. And I don't want to, I'm not hitting the panic button by any means when I say this next part, but 4-star edge rusher and Ohio State commit Zahir Mathis took an official visit to Penn State this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Both sides of that recruitment, the Mathis side and Ohio State, they both feel good about things. I think it was just more of a formality and things like that. But when you have guys that are looking around, you have got to recruit other guys as well. And Ohio State isn't quite done yet at the edge rusher position. So getting Zion Grady back on campus almost, a month and a half after his initial visit, that opening weekend of May, was huge. We're going to have to see, again, what happens here. This weekend was very, very big for Larry Johnson, not only because he had Zion Grady on campus, but because he had 4-star defensive tackle Malik Autry, the Auburn commit, as well.
Mm-hmm. All right, I want to talk Jordan Davidson. Heading into this one, it felt like an Oregon-Ohio State battle. What did you learn heading out of this official visit for Jordan Davidson?
Much like with David Sanders, I think it's the consistency for Ohio State. Ohio State had always planned on taking a big running back class. The Buckeyes have 2 commits right now in Bo Jackson and Isaiah West. And Ohio State has made their plans known to Jordan Davidson that, hey, this is what we're going to do. And we want you to be a part of this. And we want you to want to be a part of this. He has a great relationship with Carlos Lachlan, which the ironic thing in there is that Lachlan is the former Oregon running back coach, now at Ohio State, replacing Tony Alford, who's now at Michigan. Mm-hmm. And we talk about, which is better, to have the first official visit or to have the last official visit. And we can go either way in there. But I think it's more important to look at, if it's a head-to-head battle, is your official visit after that school. And Ohio State was the last official visit for Jordan Davidson. And to me, that was the best spot for Ohio State to get him in. Sounds like there's going to be a decision soon. How soon that is, we're going to, again, have to find out. Maybe this week, maybe tomorrow. I don't know. But if that's the case, coming off an Ohio State official visit, he's been loving the Buckeyes for 2 years. Ryan Day, head coach, has been super, super instrumental in this recruitment, especially in March when Ohio State was without a running backs coach. Ryan Day really took over that recruitment for the Buckeyes. Mm-hmm. So I've had an RPM pick on the Buckeyes for Jordan Davidson. I have no reason to change that as of now. And going out of this official visit, I still like the Buckeyes to very, very narrowly beat the Ducks in this recruitment.
All right, let's hear it. Ohio State fans, how are you guys feeling coming out of this weekend? Who do you think could be the next to commit? Will it be Jordan Davidson? Will it be somebody else? But more importantly, how are we feeling on David Sanders? Let me know, comment section below. Well, you've made it to the end of today's video, but there's hundreds more videos on the On3 Recruits channel for you to check out. And also, while you're here, hit subscribe.